I'm Peter Steinfeld, and welcome back to the Employee Safety Podcast. Rick Kelly is our guest on today's show. Rick is the Senior Vice President of Global Safety, Security, and Business Continuity at Chubb, which is the world's largest publicly traded property and casualty insurance company. I couldn't wait to get Rick on the show to talk about his personal approach to safety leadership and how Chubb fosters leadership within the organization. Let's dive in.
You're listening to the Employee Safety Podcast from Alert Media, a podcast for professionals responsible for the safety and well-being of their employees. Each episode features an interview with a leader in employee safety to discuss how to protect your employees from a wide array of threats, from severe weather to a global pandemic. Let's get into the show.
Rick, welcome. How are you?
Hey, Peter, it's great to see you. I'm doing well today.
It's really great to have you on the show. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you arrived at Chubb?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So my career started in law enforcement, local law enforcement, back in the mid to late 80s now, which seems like a long time ago. And I was a local police officer in Pennsylvania, and then eventually made my way to the FBI for a career in federal law enforcement for about 14 years. And then was able to make the jump into corporate security, which is where I am now with Chubb. Here I am the Senior Vice President responsible for safety, security, and business continuity. So got quite a big remit, and I'm also function as the Chief Security Officer for the organization.
Fantastic. That's a wonderful background. You really have seen emergencies from just about all angles.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started when I was a young child in, adolescent in my hometown. I was part of the fire service there and also the emergency services. So I've sort of cut my teeth on public service and emergency services, making my way into the private sector now, where we sort of do the same thing, right? We're like the corporate police department, right? We do all the fun stuff that, a lot of the employees in our organization call us the cool kids, right? So we are kind of the cool kids, and we get to do all the fun stuff that sort of is not necessarily secret, but most of your standard line employees would think it was fun stuff to do, right? Investigations and safety and, all those things that sometimes are considered bad day issues.
Sure. Well, speaking of that, Chubb is just a massive company. So can you give our listeners just a quick overview of the organization and then your role there specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. So Chubb is the largest publicly traded property and casualty insurer in the world. So we've got operations in 54 countries. We have about 700 locations currently, and we're also in the process of expanding our life business in Asia Pacific, which is going to double the footprint over the next 6 or 8 months for us.
Wow.
So we've got quite the footprint out there globally, and we have currently about 31,000 employees across the footprint right now, and it's quite an exciting time to be at Chubb. As I mentioned, so my role is sort of the Chief Security Officer, and I function as the safety officer as well for the organization.
Excellent. Now, when you first arrived at Chubb, what were some of your primary goals for your team and your department?
So when I first came to the organization, the security department and the business continuity or crisis management department were sort of housed in separate entities in the organization. The business continuity sat in the IT side of the house and operations side, and security sat on the legal side of the house. So the position that I sit in now is a newly created position to sort of bring these organizations together and start to do more collaboration and cooperation to sort of build efficiencies in those programs and do a better job protecting the people of the organization, number one, and then protecting our assets, our reputation and brand, number two. So when I came in, it was quite the challenge to sort of look at two different groups of individuals from various backgrounds and different generations too. So the security team was much more mature and had been around for a long time, and almost all of the security personnel were retired from other federal or local law enforcement. And the business continuity team was quite young and energetic and aggressive. So to look at those two groups and sort of get them together and understand how to talk with each other and to sort of build those efficiencies and get the expertise working in the same direction was quite the challenge. But nonetheless, it's been, an extremely enjoyable experience. The teams work extremely well together, and it's just a fantastic opportunity here.
Why was it important for you to make these structural and really cultural shifts, and how have they benefited the organization?
Well, we found that, during times of crisis, these two teams do a lot of the same thing. While they were sitting in separate sides of the organization, we sort of respond to and react to the same types of crises. So to bring those groups together builds those efficiencies and just makes for a much better holistic approach to crisis management, crisis response, and at the end of the day, keeping our people safe and resuming business as quickly as possible. So
right. Do you see this becoming a common theme across many organizations as you network with others out there? Or do a lot of companies basically keep this very siloed?
yeah, I think I see more and more that more companies are sort of blending these groups together, right? So business continuity was never necessarily a part of security when I was first in the industry back in the early 2000s. And now when I see my professional colleagues and I interact with folks at different trainings and organizational meetings, I see more and more that these groups are absolutely intertwined and working together to sort of do the same thing that we're doing, build those efficiencies and bring that expertise together and really find a way to operationalize the teams for the better of the organization.
What's the pitch someone should make if they're going to their management and saying, hey, I really think we should bring these two groups together? If you had to sum it up, what would you tell them would be a powerful thing to say?
Yeah, I think because the teams do almost the same thing, right? Well, security is a responsive kind of group. Business continuity is a responsive kind of group as well. They all sort of have the common goal of solving problems and getting organizations back to where they want to be as business as usual and making sure that everything is the way it needs to be post event. To bring those people together is kind of a force multiplier for the organization. So having the teams sort of in the same organizational structure and sort of synergize together and speaking with each other and sort of doing a common role in the organization is just a win-win for everybody.
Independently, they're valuable, but together or combined, they're exponentially more powerful and beneficial to the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we found that a lot of things were sort of duplicative, right? You had two teams doing almost the same thing. It's like, 10 things are happening and all those 10 things are happening on both sides of the house. So to bring the groups together and build those synergies between them really was helpful in sort of cutting down on wasted time and actually time to resumption back to normal. So good stuff all around.
Would you say that your idea for this came from maybe the public world where you saw different agencies not communicating?
Yeah, I think so. So I was with the FBI during 9/11 and communication was critical during that particular phase of our time as an organization. And it was something that was found to be extremely lacking pre 9/11, right? So post 9/11, I had the good fortune to be in that organization when we really transformed the entire way we did business, right? So we sort of began to operate as a corporate organization, whereas the headquarters in Washington, D.C. was functioned as the corporate office, and the offices throughout the world, not just the United States, but functioned as the corporate business units. And everything sort of, worked its way back and forth from those two entities. And it really enhanced the way we did everything when it came to intelligence work and information sharing amongst all the agencies in the intelligence community. So to bring that expertise with me to the three companies that I've been with has been just absolutely invaluable in sort of building those groups together and building those efficiencies.
That's great. Well, when it comes to employees in safety or security roles, what skill sets do you look for or perhaps try to cultivate?
So I like to look for people that have blended experience, right? And when I say blended, I mean, I don't necessarily want someone with only security experience to do what we do. I don't want somebody with only business continuity or crisis experience. I like somebody that has sort of a blend of experience across all those disciplines. And also it's nice to have experience in both the public and the private sector. And then more importantly, I think we've seen over the last several years, there's a big focus on, the emotional intelligence piece, right? How do people sort of function within groups? And that's probably the most important thing for me. I mean, when I hire managers, senior leaders in the organization, the most important thing for me is, are they going to fit in with the culture? Are they going to be able to communicate effectively across the organization? Are they going to be able to be successful in their roles? And if they can do that, that's fantastic. We can teach them anything else, right? We can teach them all about how business continuity works, how crisis management works, what business resilience and operational resilience is, how to do investigations, how to handle fire safety and first aid and all those other things. But it's really hard to teach somebody those key interpersonal skills that you need to be successful in an organization. So those have become really critical for me and sort of form a cornerstone into how I try to recruit for the teams that I have here at Chubb.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that both security and business continuity are very people first businesses in disciplines. You have to be able to get along with people. And one of the big challenges I think a lot of organizations have is their employees in general who aren't involved in security and business continuity get scared when the business continuity or security people show up because they've either they've done something wrong or, how do you deal with that? Like, do you get around and tell your people to mingle with people day to day and so that there's no surprises or anything like that?
Yeah. It's always funny, Peter, because when you do show up at somebody's door, when we are back in the office normally, right? Everybody always thinks it's bad news.
Right.
So we do a fair amount of communication work. I'm really, really big on the communications outward from the group. So we have a what we call a village space, which is kind of like our internal internet space where we have blogs and we do video logs. So we do an awful lot of awareness communications. We also do a fair amount of training for our employees on all kinds of things, not necessarily just like safety or security training, but things that, like what to do around the holidays and how to think about your internet connection at home, credit card safety during those peak times in the holidays, things like that. So we try to touch on a lot of things that impact our people. And that also gives us some really, really good connectivity to them and they understand sort of what the group is about, because most folks don't understand what these groups do. They only know that in times of crisis and times of great need coming in real handy. So it's good to have that outward communication. And we do an awful lot of that throughout the year. We have an annual communications calendar that we refer back to. And that's been really, really important in sort of marketing the group and getting people to understand how important these guys are. And has increased our phone calls, right? It's not like we're sitting around waiting for the phone to ring anymore. People are engaging the team. They want to know things that might be critical for them in certain situations. They don't hesitate to call now. So they have people to reach out to. It's really been fun.
Yeah, security and business continuity really should just be part of the DNA of your business. And if you're just hiding in the background all the time, waiting to be reactive and showing up when something goes wrong, that doesn't get into the DNA of the business.
Absolutely. I mean, we want to be a partner to the business. We want to be at the table with everyone to make them successful and actually be part of the strategy of the organization. And I think here at Chubb, which is one of the things that's been really exciting for me, is that it is part of the DNA of this organization. It's valued from the top down, from the CEO on down in the organization. People understand why it's important and they value the partnership that we've built with them.
Well, I know that you're very passionate about your role as a leader and cultivating leadership amongst your employees. So can you talk a little bit about your approach?
Yeah, sure. So I'm really big on the servant leadership style. I think for me, when I sit down with my teams, it's my job to make sure that they're successful. What do they need to do the job? What are they not getting? What do they not have? How can I ensure that they have all the tools and technology they need to be successful? That's my number one priority for them. By sort of being available to them, constantly having an open door policy and communication back and forth. It's not seen as, micromanaging at all. We have a great relationship with the teams. We have a great relationship with the leaders here. It's sort of a two-way communication. That's worked extremely well for me. I have a small direct report team of vice presidents that report to me, and they have larger teams. It's the same with them, just a constant information flow and sort of helping them be successful with their teams as well.
Well, you mentioned it before, so I'm going to go there again, but do you modify or adapt your approach to leadership based on the generational differences of your employees?
Yeah, I think a little bit I have, because, when I came here, as I said before, the security team was a very senior group of individuals. So they sort of do things and see things very differently than a younger crew of, business continuity, tech savvy, very analytical individuals, right? So when you see those two groups, you've got to sort of play to their strengths. So my approach with those two groups is a little bit different. And then bringing them together, being able to leverage each individual's strengths to sort of help the other see some things differently was a big challenge, but it was also a huge success for us, right? Because we have very analytical folks in intelligence that see things very differently than a 25 or 30 year retired person from the federal law enforcement side of the house. And so, but you get those two people working together, leverage the skills, the interpersonal skills that the senior security person has from working in those customer facing roles for so long and dealing with those types of issues. And then they pick up some of the technology and some of the ways that makes the job easier now, right? The software, the technology, what's available out there, and the analytical way of looking at things. So it's pretty cool when you sort of put those two together and have the ability to have those types of different generational folks on the team and see how it can be successful.
Do you have people, I guess, learn from each other on the job while they're involved in different situations? Or do you come up with scenarios and put them in rooms together and let them realize how they think differently about things?
So we do a little bit of both, right? So we have a lot of on-the-job training that happens during particular events that come up, whether it's the response to COVID, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's a significant investigation on the security side. So that on-the-job training happens very quickly, but it's very memorable, right? It's much faster paced. It's not as mundane sometimes as learning in a classroom, but we also do a fair amount of on-site training as well. Now virtual, of course, but we always bring the entire global team together once a year for a week of leadership meetings and trainings where we actually break people up in different groups. And we have the cross-functional teams work together and share, goals and objectives and talk about problem points and touch points where they might be able to help out. And so that has, over the last couple of years, has been extremely useful in sort of working through some of the sticking points, so to speak, that some of the groups have had. So we do a little bit of a blended approach there to sort of look at those issues.
Well, I understand that you're an adjunct professor at a couple of universities. So what type of guidance do you give to young people who want to pursue a career in safety or security or business continuity?
Yeah. So I've been fortunate to do some teaching at Penn State University here in Pennsylvania, and also Shippensburg University, another fine institution here in PA. On the corporate security side, where I developed a course at Shippensburg, and at Penn State, where I did a critical theory class, which was very interesting. And the audience was junior and senior folks that were sort of getting ready to either graduate or almost at that point. So great conversations with the students about sort of what they want to do and what to expect. And so it's always good to sort of kind of level set, right? Because I think sometimes I found in the classroom, people have a little bit of a different opinion of what might be out there in the organizations that they're looking at, or what may be available out there as well. So it's always nice to be able to sort of give them my perspective from my experiences in the federal service, also in the private sector, to open their eyes a little bit to other things, because sometimes people focus on one goal and they don't even think about the other goals that may be out there that might be also suitable in their pursuit of a new career. So it's fun to sort of, not only instruct the students on those particular topics, especially the critical theory. That was a very interesting course to teach, but also kind of help them see some of the things that are on the other side when they get ready to graduate and move on to the real world here.
Mm-hmm. And what do you tell people who want to make a switch from public to private, or how do you counsel private companies who are bringing those people in? Because there's clearly a difference in thinking and how people go about doing things.
Yeah, I think some I've seen success and I've seen failure in both, right? So I've had some very, very good experiences with bringing people over from the public sector to the private sector, and it depends on sort of what your experiences were in that organization. So I think it's important for anybody who's going to make the switch to try and understand as much as you can about the organization you're going into, right? Whether it's a private sector and you want to bring in some public sector folks, you need to sort of understand what those career people are doing, what they have been through, what the lifestyle is like, just so you can understand and speak with them, from that perspective, because it's much different than the private sector. And then for the public sector folks coming out and moving into private sector work, I think it's really, really important to understand how the business really works, right? You got to speak the business language. You have to understand what it's all about, talking about budgets and plans and forecasts. It's so not the same world as we all were in back in the federal service or local police departments, where budgets are very simple, right? It is what it is, and you get what you get, and if you need more, usually you get more, right? In the business world, in the private sector world, it's not so easy, and it's all about sort of justification and business cases and how to write things and how to make your argument. So that sometimes is a big shock for some folks coming out of the federal service or local law enforcement. And so it's good to sort of get an understanding coming from that direction, what you're coming into. So I would highly recommend that, you learn as much as you can about the private sector and corporate security, and also about business, skills and financial skills, right? Those are really important in this world.
Yeah. So it sounds like both sides should really deeply interview each other. It shouldn't be one-sided. So you really understand what you're getting into as the candidate, and that you really explain to the candidate what they're going to be getting into.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it just pays huge dividends for both, so that you're successful as a candidate coming in, and the organization is successful, because it costs us a lot of time and a lot of money to bring people into the organization. And so we want to make sure that they're successful as well. So I think it really is incumbent upon organizations to make sure they're doing what they need to do when they are, looking at talent acquisition and doing the interview process. And I think it's important for the candidates as well to do their homework. And I encourage that quite a bit.
Well, to close out the episode, I'd like to ask you for a piece of advice or a practical tip that our listeners can take back to their organizations to make an immediate impact. So in your experience, how can they begin to foster a culture of leadership in their places of business?
Sure. So I mean, for me, it's always been about, understanding as much as I can about the issues, understanding as much as I can about my people. I think that the people that work for me are the most important people, in my little circle. And, make sure that you understand what's happening with folks, right? Make sure that you are communicating back and forth. It's not a one-way street. This is not just a task-oriented job. We're dealing with a lot of stressful things. People deal with a lot of stressful things in their personal lives. And so I think most leaders need to sort of make sure that they're incorporating that into their day-to-day, and not just focused on the bottom line and the task at hand. I think if you're aspiring to be a leader, learn as much as you can about leadership. Find a mentor out there. Mentors are critical. I have several mentors in the industry, people I've known for years and years and years, that I consider great friends and colleagues, and they still are great mentors to me, and really never stop learning, right? I mean, I think I learn things almost every day in my job still. It's been almost 30 years. And so I would encourage people that, if you want to go into this line of work, and if you want to be in a leadership track, learn as much as you can, and really, focus on that servant leadership.
The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
This is true.
Well, Rick, thank you so much for being on the show today. We really appreciate your time and insights.
Thank you, Peter. It's been great. It's great to see you. And I'm happy to spend some time with you today doing the podcast.
Excellent. Well, if anyone listening has follow-up questions or just wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to find you out there?
So they can find me on LinkedIn under Richard Kelly and Chubb, right? So I'm also on Telegram and Signal, WhatsApp, and I think probably like 5 or 6 other social coordinates out there for communications.
So it wouldn't be too hard to stumble into you.
Yeah. LinkedIn's probably the best and easiest way to get a hold of me.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much to Rick and to all of our listeners for joining us on the Employee Safety Podcast today. If you like what you heard, I encourage you to subscribe to future episodes at Alert Media's website or on your favorite podcast player. Stay safe out there. Until next time.
Alert Media is changing the way your leaders and response teams connect and communicate effectively when seconds matter. We provide our customers with a comprehensive solution for monitoring threats around the world and deploying fast, effective emergency communication. You need a panic-proof solution for high-stakes moments. In just a few clicks, your team can send a multi-channel notification to an impacted group of people and confirm their safety immediately. When employee safety is at stake, don't just communicate. Connect and confirm with a robust emergency communication solution. Visit alertmedia.com for more information. You've been listening to the Employee Safety Podcast. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. If you're listening in Apple Podcasts, we'd love for you to give a quick rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.